Happy Monday, my friends. Thad Riley here, episode number 316 of the Thadcast. Thank you for joining me on our big and bloated after Thanksgiving episode. I'm just kidding. I'm sure you all were proportioning things with the utmost delicacy and accuracy over Thanksgiving holiday. I'm sure you were not like I was, a touch gluttonous. Actually, I got to be honest and say that this year was much more of a controlled year. And I don't really know why. I think I just kind of tapped out a little early. This might be age setting in. I may not be as indestructible as I thought. But this is the older Thad coming out. In fact, I looked at my wife the other day. I came out of the bathroom and I said, "Hey, I got more gray hair in my head than I've ever seen in my life. Like, it's really starting to come out fiercely." And I'm cool with that. And she said, "Yeah, there's a ton in your mustache." I'm like, whoa, wait a second here. Wait a second. I didn't say anything about my mustache. So we can hashtag real marriage on that one, where your spouse makes a comment and it's like, wait, pause? I was talking about my head, and now I'm going to be ultra sensitive about my mustache. And we'll talk about that for a couple of hours on this episode. I'm just kidding, but it's fun. It's fun. You know, you get older, you embrace it all. I'm 49 years old and think about the life that I've lived, and I'm so grateful for knowing Jesus for 45 years almost. It was like the spring when I was 4 years old. So about 44 and a half years I've known Jesus and experienced Jesus in my life. And that's a gift, and God is the giver of many good gifts. So as we start off this week, we start off our day, I would want to encourage you, first of all, for those at least who are listening in the morning, we're starting off our day, right? I would encourage you to start it off knowing who Jesus is, right? And Hebrews 12, 1 and 2 says he is the author and the finisher of our faith. So he is the one who writes the amazing stories that are happening around us. In 2020, did you know that amazing stories are happening around you? It's so true. People are having victory over sin struggles they've had their whole life. People are seeing a new hope they haven't seen before in their entire existence. People are connecting with God in ways they haven't connected with God. Churches are transforming, and they are seeing more people watch online than they actually had in services, or services and online combined together. People are making new friendships and relationships. And yes, social media is crazy and the world is a little bit nuts, but things are happening in our homes. The families have been driven back into the home together. Yes, the divorce rate is higher than it's been in a little while, but that doesn't mean that everything is failing. And just because there's a pandemic, that doesn't also mean that everything is in chaos and in disarray and horrible. Is it a fairly chaotic world? Well, look at the 2020 election, right? We can embrace the fact that there is chaos. However, how we let it affect us is huge. How we let the chaos around us interpret our worldview matters so very much. And over the weekend, I did not have one of my better moments. I was helping someone move, and there was a couple of comments that were made. They were degrading comments towards me while I am serving and helping someone, right? And it just, the pride thing bristled in me. And it wasn't once, and it wasn't twice. It was multiple times. And finally, I got to the point where I really spoke up, and I was mad as a hornet. Did I lose control? No. Was I threatening? No. I walked away and kind of loudly expressed my views as I was walking away. And where did that come from? Well, it came from a place of sin. It didn't come through a place of humility. Now, granted, when you're a big guy and you're helping someone move, okay, you can't cash out on them because they're going to count on the big guy to be there to lift the heavy stuff. And if you leave them, what do they got? Well, so you got to stay. You got to stay. And I had to stay, and I knew I had to stay because there was no hope of certain things being moved if I wasn't there. This person didn't have the capability of getting someone else, and it had to be me to move certain items. So I knew that, but I was super frustrated. So I just kind of like launched off and just said a couple things, not overly rude, particularly, just basically, I am done. and just kind of said, I'm out, I'm done, I'm not going to be spoken to that way. And we pause. We pause on that. I'm not going to be spoken to that way. Who says? Who says? Who says that you're not going to be spoken to that way? Is that what Jesus says? That you're not going to be persecuted? That you're not going to suffer? Who says those types of things? What we should do is we should embrace those moments as a grace. That we are still drawing breath, right? That we're still drawing breath. That God has still allowed us to live this life in this world that we're living in today. For me, it was a problem in that moment with my foundation. And I think the problem that so much of our world has right now is our foundations. And yesterday, I actually heard a young man named Chad Veach, a pastor out of LA. He's at Zoe Church LA. Phenomenal guy. You may have very well heard of Chad Veach. And he was preaching on Matthew 7:24 and 25, right? And let me read the text here. Therefore, everyone who hears these words, and this is Jesus speaking, and it's the end of the Sermon on the Mount, by the way. And so this is the big money shot, right? This is the end of this gigantic, massive sermon that is going to be etched in the annals of history for millenniums. And here's how Jesus finishes this up. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall because it had its foundation on the rock. And yesterday, I did not, because when the rains came down, when the shots were fired, what did I do? I acted out of pride. I acted out of sin. And that was inappropriate. That was inappropriate. And so when I take a look at moments like this, I think there were a couple of key things I could have worked on. Number one, to have all of my self-worth in Jesus and his view of me, and to have that eternal perspective in my life, to truly understand and know how good God has been to me, and to rest in that. How are we doing resting in 2020? Is our soul, is our spirit at rest in the goodness of God? And I say that with emphasis, and I say that with sincerity to you today. Because when we rest in the person of Jesus, again, the author, the finisher of our faith, everything changes. Everything changes. Our perspective of the world changes. Now, Chad Veach talked about this one word that was in there, in this passage, practice. Put them in. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like the wise man who built his house on the rock. I don't know about you, but sometimes putting Jesus's words into practice are the last thing that I want to do in the moment, right? Times are tough. Things are kind of like, And the last thing that we want to do then is just take the humble position, take the calmer, kinder, gentler road. No, we want to be a little bit self-serving. We want to, take care of us, right? Before we take care of others. It's hard. This stuff is hard. But we have the example of Jesus to follow. We have the Holy Spirit in our heart working this out. And some of you may say, listen, bro, I have forgiveness issues. I have bitterness. I've never gotten over to this day. And I'm telling you right now, we've got to learn how to let that go. We've got to move on, forgive others, ask for forgiveness where we need to, and move on. And move forward in God's goodness and his light. That is our calling. And I'm convicted over it myself. It is not easy, especially with people who might have been abusive, verbally or physically, somebody who might have been a narcissist in our life, somebody who was very toxic and hurtful. But this is how we put the words of Jesus into practice every day. We do it through our relationships, and we do it because of how good God is to us. And we root our hearts in the foundation of Jesus and the scriptures. And that's how this all plays out, and that's how this all works. So when we hear the words of Jesus, we embrace the words of Jesus. Blessed are the peacemakers. Was I embracing that yesterday? Was I? No, absolutely not. Right? And it talks about that in the Beatitudes at the start of this. And everybody who's blessed, you can go read those. Everybody who's blessed, but it gives us instructions on life. And so Jesus is saying, if you hear those words of mine and you put them into practice, you are like the wise man who built his house upon the rock. So when the storm comes, what are you doing? When the streams rise, what are you doing? When the winds blow and beat against your house, does it fall? I fell yesterday. For the record, I fall every day. It's true. So if you're looking for a guy who's got it all figured out, you got the wrong podcast. And I don't know who to tell you to turn to. We ain't got it figured out. We're not going to get it figured out in this life, folks. But we're going to try and practice what he taught us. We're going to try and follow that route. This is not a flailing against the wind, my friends. This is a hope-filled thing of what the Holy Spirit can and is doing in each of us. That's the difference. That's the hope that we have in what God is doing in us and how he will heal those things and those problems. And you may be saying, listen, I've been looking at pornography for years, or I've been looking at things that I should not be looking at for years. I've been absorbing them into my soul. Whatever these things are, I've been absorbing into my soul. Well, listen, that's hard. And addictions or something that is close to that can be very difficult to deal with. And there's all kinds of groups out there, but here's my encouragement to you. These things don't change without the power of the Holy Spirit in us by the cross that Jesus died on. And because of the forgiveness of sins and the redemption possibilities for all of mankind, for all of sins, through Jesus, anyone who comes to him, we have hope in the power of God working in us. And how do we have that hope? How does that manifested? Through practice. The steps that we take every single day to heal with others, to resist and flee from sin, whether we need accountability or whether we just need to make the decision once and for all that this is over, and ask Jesus to help you. Because he's going to do the heavy lifting, my friends. But it's going to be tough. And maybe the winds are going to blow. But if your foundation is set rock solid in Jesus, you're going to be great. You're going to be more than great. You are going to be, and this sounds weird, okay. Why is okay better than great? Because it's this piece of knowing, you are going to be able to maintain, because your foundation was built in the teachings of Jesus, and because you practice those teachings, because you practice them, you will be okay in the storm where we are right now today. So have faith and have hope in what God has done for you and in the teachings of Jesus from the scriptures. My encouragement would be to read Matthew 5-7 and embrace the Sermon on the Mount and those teachings and manifest them, make them manifest in your heart today, because God's all about the heart, right? And give it all over to him to work out a new thing in us so that we can step forward with this optimism and this hope. Chad Veach was right yesterday. He kept saying, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Hey, listen, whatever the world throws at you, even if you die, you're going to be okay because of Jesus, because of all that Jesus has done. So that's where we have our hope today on this Monday. That's why we wake up in a new day, in a new week, in almost a new month, right? With this hope. And we're moving into Christmas now, the season of celebrating the arrival of Jesus on earth. And tomorrow I am starting that by beginning my devotional, 25 Days with Jesus. It's a devotional that I wrote in 2016, I believe, or 17. Maybe it was 16. And it's built around every single day up until the day of Christmas. There is a devotional that you can read that will encourage you in your walk with God. It has biblical context, historical context. There's going to be stories in there, stuff you've never known of before about the history of Jesus. I can guarantee you'll find a couple of things that you never knew about, okay, about that time when Jesus was born, about the historical, all the good stuff back then, right? And so get that book if you can today on Amazon. Join us a couple days late. If you get the paperback, that's fine, or on Kindle, okay? And make this time of the year special, something you haven't experienced before, by bringing it all back around Jesus for 25 straight days. I have a Facebook group, so as soon as you have a copy of that, please let me know, and I will add you to our private Facebook group where we will be sharing about the story of Jesus every day. In that group, we'll be posting, we'll be talking about it. We'll all encourage each other. We're all going to come together as this awesome community and bring it all together and have this great time together, okay? So that starts tomorrow. In fact, I'll probably do a podcast. Tomorrow's podcast probably will could have something to do about that story, about my devotional. So pick that up today if you can, 25 Days with Jesus by Thad Riley, available on Amazon, and that would be awesome. Also, if you have not joined the Facebook group for the Thadcast, do that right now. Type in the Thadcast, it'll come up, ask you a couple questions about not trolling folks or something, and you'll be put right into the group. And I love that. And if you can introduce yourself to me, that would be awesome as well. That group is building, getting big and awesome and all that good stuff, okay? So that group is where all the latest and greatest info comes out about the Thadcast. So thank you for joining me here today on this Monday. We're going to go get this week because of Jesus. Our foundation is rooted in him. We're fired up because all of the good things that God is doing in our world today, and even though there's storms, we are rock solid where we are today. And if you, by the way, if you could share this episode with one friend or on social media, that always helps. And hey, those ratings and reviews mean everything sometimes. So if you could do that for me, that would also be good. All right, well, listen, thank you for joining me on episode number 316. And until next time, my dear friends, may you be blessed.